So as you get closer to the end of your bachelor's degree, you're going to start thinking about what is the world going to look like after you're done. And so this video is meant to give you a basic idea about the possible career paths you might have and a little bit about the differences between them and also a little bit about helping you make the decision of what you're going to do. So it all starts out with a bachelor's degree in chemistry, and that's really where it starts. And the good part about getting a bachelor's degree in chemistry is it's one of the few degrees where you can graduate and say I'm done and go directly into the industry and get a job. And many of our graduates have done that, where they've gone and with a bachelor's degree worked in the industry, and they've been there ever since and been super happy. Really, some of the other paths, you can become a K through 12 teacher, but to do that you need to get into a credential program, so it's a little bit more time. But also, as a chemist or a scientist, they are really looking for scientists to teach, say, high school. And if you're interested in doing that, there's many programs that will help pay for your tuition just because you're a science major. And there's also programs that will get you teaching really early. So there's, if you do that, actually here at Sonoma State, we do have a credential program, so you can go talk to them if you're interested in that. Also, a bachelor's degree in chemistry makes a great starting point to go into some kind of health program like MD, PhD, all that, because you end up taking a lot of the prerequisites that you need to get into these health programs as part of a bachelor's degree. And what else is nice is you always have something to fall back on. So say the health program doesn't work out, or you get into it and you realize you don't really want to work in a health program, well, you still have a bachelor's degree in chemistry. So one of the other paths is you can go to graduate school. So I will talk about the difference between having a bachelor's degree and going and getting, say, a PhD in a later video. But you can do that. If you do get a PhD, you pretty much have the same kind of decision. You can work in the industry, and the jobs are going to be a little bit different between having a bachelor's degree in chemistry in industry and a PhD in chemistry in industry. With the PhD, you also open up this avenue of going into academics, so to teach at four-year colleges and community colleges. And then PhDs also regularly work on the higher levels of government and regulation jobs. And really, why we make this video is what you don't want to do is absolutely nothing. So you've gone through all the bother of getting a degree in chemistry. It's time for that degree in chemistry to start paying you. And what we mean by that is you should be getting jobs that you could not have gotten unless you had a degree in chemistry. That's really what it means. You got to make the degree pay for you. And I know it's a scary jump, and it takes a certain level of nerve to actually start applying for these jobs. But you have an excellent education that you got here from Sonoma State, and most of our graduates end up doing that. All you really need to do is apply, and we'll talk about applying to jobs a little bit later on. But what you don't want to do is just go back and start continue on with whatever job you had, before you started coming to Sonoma State. So one of the hardest parts about chemistry is answering the question of what are you going to do with a chemistry degree? And the problem is you can do almost anything with a chemistry degree. So if you think of every industry that involves some kind of chemical, from pharmaceuticals to detergent companies to Chevron oil, if there's a chemical involved in there, they hire chemists. And so you can get involved in almost any field whatsoever. So here's just a straight list: pharmaceuticals, biotech, cosmetics, agriculture, electronics, plastic, dyes, wine, paint. All these industries hire chemists to work in their fields. And beyond that, you can get jobs in these larger government agencies. FDA, one of our SSU graduates actually worked for the DEA for a while. You can get a job at NASA, the DOD, it goes on and on. NIH, these industries or these agencies hire chemists to do their work. And of course, you can go into the health fields, you can go into teaching. And I also want to make sure everybody knows that there is quite a few jobs out there that don't follow the regular chemist path, where they actually don't involve chemicals. So just because you have a degree in chemistry doesn't mean you need to work in a lab. There is tons of other variations of it. So you can go into sales. So these pharmaceutical companies hire chemists to go and sell their product. They go, they travel the country and they try to sell their product to other businesses. Same thing with marketing. And then there's this whole field of technical writing and scientific journalism. So magazines hire chemists to write about science, literally. Many of them have gone into what's called intellectual property and patent law. So one of the chemists I know works at Chevron, and they work in the patent law office. Even though they don't have a degree in law, they work in understanding and seeing if one idea is similar enough to another idea to be a patent infringement. So somebody needs a certain level of understanding of the chemistry to be able to understand that. So just because you're a chemist doesn't mean you have to work in a lab. There's a ton of other variations. And so you can see it's this broad level. It's, kind of hard to decide what you're going to actually do. But in some of these later videos, we're going to help you make that decision and try to get you going on the right path. So where are some of the SSU graduates now? Just to give you an idea, many of them go on to graduate school, very top end. So very possible for you to get into a graduate school in chemistry. Some of them have worked in local industry. So right around in Santa Rosa, there is a chemical synthesis company. BioMarin is in Marin. It's a pharmaceutical company. Dow Chemical is in Petaluma. Of course, every winery hires technicians to work there. Tons of jobs in analytical fields, and it just keeps going on. Medical school, pharmacy school, and things like that. So just to give you a general idea of what you're going to do. So say you get your degree in chemistry and you go and get a job in the field, and what are you going to actually be doing? And this is just in a general sense, so every job is going to be a little bit different. If you go into the industry with a bachelor's degree, really you're looking to be doing the physical part. So you're going to be a technician, you're going to be running analyses or running reactions, doing things that have commonly been done there, and you will be writing reports, keeping a lab notebook and things like that. But you're really saying that you want to do the actual physical part. If you go and you get a PhD and you run in the industry, you can still work in the lab if you want. It's called being a wet chemist, where you can still work in the lab and be a PhD chemist, but typically you'll be doing a larger project and they'll have some bachelor degree chemists working with you. But really with a PhD, you're saying you're going more towards the management end of things. So you will be spending more time doing project planning, saying how am we actually going to fulfill this project. You're going to be managing other chemists. You will be probably talking to other customers and making sure that you understand what they want from the project you're doing, and you're going to be doing a lot of report writing. So that's really the difference, the physical end versus kind of the more cerebral end. And there's other differences. We'll have a video later on to really talk about the pros and cons about having a bachelor's degree versus having a PhD, and there's pluses and minuses for both of them. If you do go into teaching, if you go into high school, remember you need a bachelor's degree and a teaching credential, and really you're going to be doing all teaching. That's entirely what you do. You will be doing some curricular development, but there's no actual research portion of it. So that's what you're going to be doing, and the curriculum is going to be pretty defined. So at the high school level, what you need to cover and what you need to teach is defined by the school board. If you get a job in a community college, so with this, to get a job in a community college, you only need a master's degree, but many people do have PhDs to do this. Still, at a community college, it's technically all teaching. You do not do research, but you get to teach, and in a community colleges, they can only teach lower division courses, but there is room for advancement. So if you become a professor, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a professor forever. That these administrative positions, like the chair of the departments, dean of the school, president of the school, are typically come from faculty members. They get elected up. So if you're interested in that, there is room for advancement. So the president here at Sonoma State was a faculty member at one point. If you go and teach at a four-year college, you're going to need to get a PhD, and most likely you're going to need what's called a postdoctoral position. So that's a peer research position that you get after your PhD, so that's something else you can worry about. to get into a really good four-year college, you need to get a degree from a pedigree school. We call it that. Really, if you want to teach at a school, four-year school that has any kind of research component in it, you want to get to one of the highest ranked schools that you can. And when we say highest rank, I mean, you know what we're talking about, like UC Berkeley, Stanford, Harvard, Caltech, MIT, Harvard, Yale, these really high-powered research institutions. That's really where you want to try to get a degree from. But, there is some variation with that. But where you got your degree from is actually quite important. So not all PhD degrees are exactly the same. The real beauty of a four-year college is you do teaching and research in different proportions. So here at a CSU, the focus is more on teaching, but you still have an expectation of doing research. At a larger school, say a PhD granting school, so say like UC Davis, that's reversed. You need to be focused on research and you actually do very little teaching. What's nice about this, you get very involved with the campus, so there's other committees that help decide campus policies, and just like with a community college, there's room for advancements if you want to do that. So really the scary part is, how do you decide what you want to do? What area do you want to go into? And things like that. And the idea is you have to make your own decision. You got to find what you're interested in, what you're passionate about. And you do that by looking at the different options that you have. So you need to determine, think back. So as part of your chemistry degree, you took multiple courses in different areas. So there is like physical chemistry, analytical chemistry, organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry. And you think of those courses, which one did you find the most interesting? And then did you like running instrumentation? Did you like it when you were running the HPLC or the NMR? And then did you like it when you were working in a lab? Was that something that you enjoyed or something that you would, maybe didn't enjoy? Which is all fine. The more honest you are about yourself, about your taste, the happier you're going to be, because you're going to find a job that does make you happier. So what I did is I just saw what was out there. So go to a job site. The one I used was monster.com. There's other ones like that. And I would just search, just type in chemistry or chemist, bachelor's degree or PhD, and just see what kind of jobs popped up and see which ones seemed like they might be fun to do. And in this case, you want to use a wide variety of search terms, and you want to search multiple sites. But use terms like scientist, technician, things like that, because some jobs are kind of more broad and they're looking with somebody with a generalized science degree, and you could still get that job with a chemistry degree, but they may not advertise it as a chemist position. So you want to look at a wide variety of jobs and look at them and say, can I see myself doing that? Does that sound exciting? The real key, if you want long-term to be happy in something, is if you can just find somebody who has the job that you want. Really, after that, it's just jumping through some hoops. All you got to do is say, what did they have to do to qualify for that job? What kind of training did they get? And you copy their training, and now you're able to get that job. So with me, I wanted to be a professor at a CSU, so I went and I looked at the resumes of almost all the chemistry professors in all of the CSUs. And if you look, they all had a PhD, all from a high-powered institution, and then they all had a postdoctoral position, and some of them had some additional teaching experience. So I knew that if I was going to be serious about getting a job as a professor at CSU, I needed to go get a postdoctoral position. I needed an extra experience. But once I got that, then I was qualified, and then I started applying for jobs, and I eventually got one. So if you can just find somebody who has the job you want, and think big, you can do almost anything. Look at that and say, what did they have to do to get that job? Did they have to get additional training? Did they have to get a certification or whatever? You go and get that, and then now you're qualified for that job, and you can get it. Another thing you might want to do is become more involved in the department. So definitely do research. Because research is actually the research you do, and say 494 or in the 316 course, that research that you're doing is a lot closer to what you would be actually doing in the industry as opposed to what you learn in the classroom. So the material you learn in the classrooms helps you understand what's going on, but the actual day-to-day work is very much like working in that lab. So if you go and you do research, you can say, do I like this? Could I imagine doing this, say, 40 hours a week? And if the answer is yes, great, then you continue forward. If the answer is no, well, you need to become something else. Another thing, you can become an SI or a TA or a grader or things like that. And the idea there, this gives you a little taste of teaching, and you can say, did I enjoy teaching? Was I good at it? Was it, fulfilling for me? And if the answer is yes, maybe you might want to become a teacher. So the idea is while you're getting your undergraduate degree, you can do some positions that give you an experience that's pretty close to what you're going to be doing afterwards, and then allows you to get a better idea of what you might like. Also, definitely, you're going to want to get as many opinions about things as you possibly can. So you talk to faculty members, alumni. We have contact with many different alumni, most of which have done almost every field, that you can think of, and we can get you in touch with them if you talk to me. Talk to faculty members, ask them what their experience was like in school, tell them about what your plans are, and try to get their advice. And don't just talk to one, talk to anybody that you possibly can and get as much advice as you possibly can. And kind of lastly, talk to our seminar speakers. This is why we bring seminar speakers on campus, is to expose our students to the wider world of what's going on in chemistry. So a lot of the times they will be professors at other research institutions, but we often bring in people from the local industry, and you can hear about what they do in the industry or what they do in academics, and you get a better idea about it. And then remember, after the seminar, we typically take the seminar speaker to lunch, and so you can go with them, you can talk to them, you make a connection, and maybe that can lead to a job eventually. So that's where you want to start, and this video is just meant to get you thinking about these things. And then we're going to give you some more videos to give you some comparisons and help you try to narrow down what you might be interested in doing.